Bilbo opened his eyes. It was just as dark as with them shut. No one was anywhere near him. He could hear nothing, see nothing, feel nothing, except the stone of the floor. Very slowly, he got up and groped on all fours till he touched the wall of the tunnel. No sign of goblins, no sign of dwarves. His head was swimming, and he was far from certain even of direction. He guessed as well as he could, and crawled along till suddenly his hands met what felt like a tiny ring of cold metal lying on the floor of the tunnel. It was a turning point in his career, but he did not know it. He put the ring in his pocket, almost without thinking. Why had he been left behind? Why had the goblins not caught him? The truth was, he had been lying quiet, out of sight, in a very dark corner. After some time, he felt for his pipe and tobacco. They were there. Slapping all his pockets and feeling all round himself for matches, his hand came on the hilt of his sword, the little dagger that he had got from the trolls. He drew it. It shone, pale and dim, before his eyes. Somehow he was comforted. So it is an elvish blade too. And goblins are not very near, and yet not far enough. Shall I go back? No, that's no good. Sideways? Impossible. Forward? Only thing to do. On we go. So up he got, and trotted along with his little sword, his heart all a pitter and a patter, until, suddenly, without any warning, he trotted splash into icy cold water. He stopped, and he could hear, listening hard, drops drip, drip, dripping from an unseen roof into the water below. There was no other sound. So it is a pool or a lake, and not an underground river. Deep down here by the dark water lived Gollum, a small, slimy creature, as dark as darkness, except for two big, round, pale eyes in his thin face. He had a little boat, and he paddled it with large feet dangling over the side. But never a ripple did he make, not he. He was looking out of his pale, lamplight eyes for blind fish, which he grabbed with his long fingers as quick as thinking. He liked meat, too. Goblin he thought good when he could get it, but he took care they never found him out. He just throttled them from behind if they ever came down alone anywhere near the edge of the water. Gollum lived on a slimy island of rock in the middle of the lake. He was watching Bilbo now from a distance with his pale eyes like a telescope. Bilbo could not see him, but he was wondering a lot about Bilbo as he slowly paddled his boat toward him. Suddenly, up came Gollum and whispered and hissed, "Bless us and splash us, my precious. I guess it's a choice feast, at least a tasty morsel it'd make us." Gollum? And when he said, Gollum, he made a horrible swallowing noise in his throat. That is how he got his name, though he always called himself my precious. The Hobbit nearly jumped out of his skin when the hiss came, and suddenly he saw the pale eyes sticking out at him. "Who are you?" he said, thrusting his dagger in front of him. "What is he, my precious?" whispered Gollum. I am Mr. Bilbo Baggins. I have lost the dwarves, and I have lost the wizard, and I don't know where I am, and I want to get out of here." "What's he got in his hands? A sword, a blade which came out of Gondolin," said Gollum, and became quite polite. "Perhaps he sits here and chats with it a bit, see, my precious. It likes riddles, perhaps it does. Does it?" "Very well," said Bilbo, who was anxious to agree until he found out more about the creature. "You ask first." So Gollum hissed, "What has roots as nobody sees, is taller than trees, up, up it goes, and yet never grows." "Easy," said Bilbo. "Mountain, I suppose."
Oh, does it guess easy? Oh, it must have a competition with us, my precious. If Precious asks and it doesn't answer, we eats it, my precious. If it asks us and we doesn't answer, then we does what it wants, eh? We shows it the way out, yes?
All right, said Bilbo, not daring to disagree and nearly bursting his brain to think of riddles that could save him from being eaten. 30 white horses on a red hill. First they champ, then they stamp, then they stand still. It was rather an old one, and Gollum knew the answer as well as you do.
Chestnuts, chestnuts, he hissed. Teeth, teeth, my precious.
Then he asked his second. This time he tried something a bit more difficult and more unpleasant.
It cannot be seen, cannot be felt, cannot be heard, cannot be smelt. It lies behind stars and under hills, and empty holes it fills. It comes first and follows after, ends life, kills laughter.
Unfortunately for Gollum, Bilbo had heard that sort of thing before, and the answer was all around him anyway. Dark, he said, without even scratching his head. A box without hinges, key or lid, yet golden treasures inside is hid, he asked to gain time. It proved a nasty poser for Gollum. He hissed to himself, whispering and spluttering. Well, the answer's not a kettle boiling over, as you seem to think from the noise you are making, said Bilbo.
Give us a chance. Let it give us a chance, my precious.
Oh, come on then, what about your guess? But suddenly Gollum remembered thieving from nests long ago and sitting under the riverbank teaching his grandmother to suck.
Eggs, he hissed. Eggs it is.
Then he asked,
alive without breath, as cold as death, never thirsty, ever drinking, all in mail, never clinking.
Bilbo sat and cleared his throat once or twice, but no answer came. After a while, Gollum began to hiss with pleasure to himself.
Is it nice, my precious? Is it juicy? Is it scrumptiously crunchable?
He began to peer at Bilbo out of the darkness. Half a moment, said Bilbo, shivering. I gave you a long chance just now.
Make haste,
said Gollum, climbing out of his boat to get at Bilbo. But when he put his long, webby foot in the water, a fish jumped out in fright and fell on Bilbo's toes. He said, it is cold and clammy, and guessed. Fish, fish, he cried. It is fish.